Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be doing a compassion hop which is in collaboration with mixedmediabeyond.com. Go and check those out. All the instructions for the hop are in the description box below. So to find out who you're going to visit next, please click on the box below. So today we are starting off in our large Delusions journal and we're going to be doing a bit of a magazine collage, and I chose this in particular because my theme for this hop about compassion was being compassionate with ourselves as an artist. And I know for a lot of us, even using that word artist is such a difficult thing to say because we don't really believe it of ourselves, even though we're making marks, putting paint on page, being creative. Quite often we will argue with ourselves and say we're not an artist. So I challenge you to call yourself an artist. Even today I still find the label uncomfortable, but I force myself to use it, and it does change your mindset when you're creating. So I'm just starting out by using lots of blues in my background. I have watered them down a little bit so they look a little bit more translucent than they usually do, just to create a background. And now I'm going in with this stencil from the Crafters Workshop, so I think it's a new one, and layering up some leaves in the background. So for those of you who have been on my channel before, know that leaves and twiddly bits and branches like this are my jam. I love them. This isn't the usual way I would start off a magazine collage, but I usually do something in the background. I don't tend to go in with stenciling too much or doing much of a detail, but I want to do a few different things on this. And, you know, going back to the theme of compassion, it means a lot of different things. But I think in this context for me, it's allowing yourself to make mistakes and grow from that. So my big thing, for those of you who don't know, I'm also a school teacher. Used to teach in primary school, now I'm teaching in high school. But my mantra to everyone is, firstly, there's no mistakes in art. It can always be fixed, it can always be changed. You've always made it for a reason. So, you know, I really encourage people never to throw out a piece of paper or, you know, say, oh no, I have to start again. You know, what can we do from this? How can we change it? What can we learn from it? How can we grow from it? The second one is practice does not make perfect. No one is perfect. So, you know, when we're learning to stencil, when we're learning to draw, when we're learning to paint, we're going to make mistakes. And that's okay, because that's how we learn. If it was perfect the first time, we're not really going to learn anything from it. So we need to be really compassionate with ourselves. Give yourself the grace to grow and to learn and to develop. Because through making those mistakes, you'll probably actually find better ways to do it that work for you. So the second thing I'm doing, once I've sort of blended my colours together, when I was putting the stenciling in the background, I was using my foam sponge, so I sort of got this mottled and marbled effect on my journaling in the background. I then took the leftover paint, because I had it, and painted a border. And usually when I'm doing borders like this, I like them to be nice and neat and straight, but this one wasn't, and that was okay. You know, it was going to be a bit wibbly wobbly. It's still going to work. It's still going to border my edge, be an edge of my border. I don't know how that works, but it'll still work. You see, when I'm drawing my lines, I don't have a ruler out. The lines are a bit wonky, and it's okay. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect every time. Same with doing these little lines. They're not even. They're not very straight, some of them wobbly, my pen was leaking through, and these are all things that I could get really worked up about or annoyed about, or, you know, why isn't it working? It doesn't look like it's supposed to look. But in the long run, when it's finished, all those things kind of fade into the background. So it is about just being slow with yourself and going, it's okay, it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. And from a distance, you know, that looks okay on screen. Up close I can see all the flaws and faults in it, but you know, from a distance it's okay. So another trick I always give my students at school is, you know, when you're actually trying to judge a piece of art, step at least a metre away from it when you're looking at it, because it kind of gives you a true sense of what you're doing. So one of the things I like to do, and again this sort of goes back to me fighting against perfection, is when I'm drawing, I deliberately don't make my lines a bit wobbly and messy. And what I've found is it actually looks more artsy to my eye than if I tried to do it perfectly straight. Now if I did it perfectly straight and I made a tiny little wobble on it, that wobble would really stick out. Whereas if they're all a bit wibbly wobbly, it kind of all blends into the background. Same reason with going around my stenciling. So, you know, if your stenciling is not perfect, that's okay, because you can get your pen like I'm doing here and just outline it. Again, in the close-ups you will see these are really sketchy outlines. They're not perfect, they're just adding a little bit of extra definition around. So, you know, some of those lines are on the stenciling, some of them are over the top of the stenciling. It's just enough to give a little bit of definition to push those stencil branches out to the beginning. And because I knew I was going to stick that magazine collage over the top, I haven't done all of them. So you can do. Quite often if I'm sort of in the zone, I'm watching something on TV as I'm doing this, I'll sort of just get carried away and do it all, but you don't have to. So this is just a image I found in a fashion magazine that I've cut out. I actually quite liked her head, but I didn't want to use it for this project, so I've cut it off and put it in my collage box. Again, you can see here, I haven't glued this down perfectly. I've got wrinkles in it, and you know, it's okay. It's not going to affect my end result. If you want it to be a little bit more flat, you could use a glue stick. But to be honest, it just adds to the image. It gives it a little bit of more texture. Well, that's my thinking of it anyway. One of the things I do like to do with my magazine collage is to outline it all with a black pen. What that does is kind of defines it a little bit more. It also kind of turns it into a two-dimensional, it's obviously two-dimensional, but it's more two-dimensional. It kind of makes it almost cartoony by doing this, which I quite like the look of. And it's really great practice for your hand as well, because if you're not great at drawing figures or drawing body shapes and that sort of thing, you're kind of training your hand just by tracing over the images on how those shapes look and feel. So getting a bit of muscle memory into it, which I really like. So not only am I going over her body, I'm also going over her face, putting in extra details around her eyes, so making her eyelashes even bigger, and having a little bit of fun. Now, I knew I didn't want to change the colours on this image too much. Usually I go crazy with lots of Posca paint pens on it, but I wanted something a little bit more translucent, and I decided to use my distress crayons to do this. The great thing about that is they sort of blend in, so it just gives this translucent colour over the top. And I also decided I wanted to colour her dress, so just by using a different distress crayon, I could just blend it in together with my hands and get this sort of look. If you've got Copic markers or alcohol markers, they've got a translucent ink in it as well, so you can kind of get that effect. So you can see all the shadows from underneath, which helps make your image look a little bit more real. In the shadowy areas, I used a little bit of a darker green there, just to help pop it up from the background. One of the things I did find though is trying to put the Posca paint pen over the top of the distress crayons was a little bit tricky. So just have a little bit of think about how you want to do that. Possibly because I did it straight away, that's why it was, because it's sort of that oil pastel-y type makeup, that the Posca paint pen was kind of resisting against it. Maybe if I'd left it overnight to dry, it would have been better. So just something to think about. Again, you know, that's what this is all about. You know, it's not always going to be perfect, and that's okay. So with the bag, even though it was green and it kind of fitted in with the colours on the page, I decided I wanted a little bit more interest. So I'm going in my pink paint pen to add in some dots all over it, then using my white pen to outline it. Once I've done that, I'm going in and thinking about what sort of quote I want on it. So I knew I wanted to write practice makes progress on this page, but I wasn't sure where I was going to put it. And then I decided, why not just write it over the figure? Because for me, with this page, this message was the most important part. Well, I like the image in the background, I like the stenciling. That quote is actually the most important part for me. So when I'm writing or doing handwriting on my pages, I always write with Posca paint pen. And I just write directly on my page, which I know scares a lot of people. The reason I do that is because I'm very heavy-handed with pencils, and I often make an indent in the page, which I don't like. With the Posca paint pens, usually it wouldn't have actually worked on this page, but if I make a mistake, I can get a wet wipe and wipe it away. Now, because I had the distressed crayons in the background, that would have actually been an issue, because distressed crayons are water soluble, so it would have wiped those away. So because I usually work with acrylics and acrylics are permanent, I could have wiped the Posca paint pen away. But if you work with water soluble media like the distressed crayons, or if it was distress ink or the dilution sprays, that's not going to be as easy to do. So I found a paint pen. The bright pink didn't work to begin with, so I went on with the lighter one. If you find you don't get a perfect coat, just do another coat over the top again. When I wrote out the letters first, I wrote them out just really thin. Then I went back in again and thickened up some of the areas, so I sort of made those triangular shapes at the end. To push it out from the background, I'm going in and actually doing a border the whole way around it with black, and you can see how that pulls it out to the front. I do go back and fix the P up when I realised I'd forgotten to do the bit in the inside. My smallest pen was also dying a little bit, and again that was because it was scraping up some of the distress crayons, so I just needed to wipe that off and it started to work again. So just be aware again what materials you use and how it's going to affect what you're working with. To add a little bit more detail to my focal words, I'm going in with a white pen and just putting little dots on them. So quite often when I do magazine collages like this on my YouTube channel, I get a lot of people asking me about my handwriting and, you know, oh, how'd you do it? Oh, it looks so difficult. Oh, I struggle with it. And it goes back to this quote again, practice makes progress. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So just try. And if it looks wonky, that's okay, because it's your handwriting over it. That magazine collage isn't perfect. The background's probably not perfect. So, you know, having imperfect handwriting over the top is going to add to it as well. I wanted to put a little bit of journaling on this page to sort of talk about how I was feeling and what that piece meant to me. And about, you know, being compassionate to ourselves. So in the background, I was talking about how it is really important to give yourself grace when you are learning and when you are doing, to make mistakes, because quite often we hold ourselves to a really high expectation, and that sometimes causes more stress than it's worth. So if you're really struggling with that, get a junk journal, get a scrap piece of paper, get a piece of paper that you've actually already done something on that you don't particularly like, and create over the top of it. Something that's, you know, low stress, low pressure, that if you muck it up, which I don't think you will do, but if you do, that, you know, you haven't ruined, again, you're not going to, but I know how people feel, you haven't ruined the journal that you spent lots of money on. So give yourself some grace to do that and to just practice, because it is honestly, just by doing is the fun bit. So here's a close-up where you can see how translucent those layers of the distress crayons are, how the journaling fits in the background. You can see how scratchy my lines around my stenciling are. Here's the whole piece with that really wonky border, but it's all good because I had compassion with myself, I had a practice, and it worked out okay. So please click on the description box below to find out who you're hopping to next in this YouTube hop. Thank you so much to Mixed Media Beyond. Please check out their website. Again, you'll find the instructions for that in the description box below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It was lovely to have you all on my channel, and until next time, bye for now.